Hey y'all, so today I want to talk about activism. Um, this has been on my mind for quite a while, especially like in November and December when a soul sibling and I had differing views on activism. And so I wanted to do a video on this for anybody else that is maybe going through a similar situation, or maybe to just illuminate some stuff that might be helpful, or to give someone some type of validation in how they're going about doing things. And the reason activism is on my mind is because obviously what's going on over in Palestine and Israel with the genocide that is going on in Palestine. And I used to be a journalism major. Specifically, I wanted to do war reporting. I wanted to help give people a voice in places that so desperately needed their voices to be heard. And I wanted to use the privilege that I have as a white woman to do that. And that fueled me for quite a while in journalism school. And then, and I'm showing this because I'm going to weave this all together throughout the video. So it'll all connect in a minute. And then so on top of that, I am also sharing this video because recently I've been doing a lot of studying on the human design, which for those of you that are not familiar with the human design, you can Google human design and take your free human design test and kind of figure out what your human design is. I find that when you work with the human design and the gene keys, you really can have some very empowering tools to help you understand yourself and stand in your power. And so with my human design, I have discovered that I am a manifesting generator. And as a manifesting generator, you're kind of hybrid in the sense because you're a manifester and you're a generator. Because there are the personality types of the manifester and the generator, and then you have the manifesting generator, right? And then I have a solar plexus authority, if I remember correctly. So mine has a lot to do with emotion, but then I'm also governed by my sacral and my throat chakra. And so anyways, manifesting generators tend to have like really, really quick trains of thought. And they also tend to think a little bit differently than some of the other ones, maybe perhaps because they're a combination of the two. Not too sure. But anyways, with that said, I find that I have and I'm also an Aquarius sun. So with an Aquarius is known as like the water bringer, the knowledge bearer. They're also the sign of like humanitarians and like revolution. Um, they march to their own beat. And so anyways, with all of this in mind, I definitely was paying attention to what was going on with Palestine and Israel. And I was also paying attention to what was going on with those that were posting about Palestine and Israel because as a journalism major, even though I didn't finish my degree, one of the things that really stuck out to me in my classes was working to get the most attainable version of the truth, right? This was like back in the golden age of journalism. This is not journalism now, okay? But I really love that because it had a lot of nobility and integrity to it, right? And to do that, you have to listen to all sides of the story, all sides. You can't just go off of your stuff, right? And then you got to figure out what is the truth for you. Just because it's true for someone else doesn't mean it's your truth. And then you can't shame someone for having a different truth than you. And you shouldn't allow yourself to be shamed either for your truth, right? And so for journalism, when they do work to get the most attainable version of the truth, you interview as many people as you can. So like, let's say there was a car accident with two cars. The journalist would not only interview each driver, the journalist would interview the police officer that came to the scene or the police officer and their partner that came to the scene. They would also interview each insurance company. They would interview all the cars that pulled over as witnesses. They would pull camera footage. They would interview a person down the street that heard the crash, didn't even see the crash. They would do as much research as they could to get the most attainable version of the truth. Because the truth is not always what's just being said by one person and another person. It's much bigger than that, and to realize that you're getting the most attainable version of it, or to figure out if you're on the right track for getting the most attainable version of the truth, you'll start to realize there's a core story arising, right? And it's from there that you kind of get to piece it together for yourself. And I find that with what's going on with Palestine, there's a lot that is being said, and there's a lot of listening that needs to be done. And I also find that, I guess, being part of the spiritual community, I don't really like labels, but for the sake of this video, being part of the spiritual community, because I do energy healing and energy work and shadow work and inner child work, I've noticed that there's been a lot of people blasting like spiritual coaches that have been like selling their programs without acknowledging the genocide that is going on. And I think that is good to be aware of, definitely. And with my view, a genocide is a genocide. You should just call it what it is. There's no beating around the bush. You're doing a disservice if you're not at least witnessing what's going on, right? So that's been going on in the spiritual community. And then on top of that, I noticed there's like a lot of people in the comments. So like I'll watch the videos that like the person is making, and then I like to read their viewer comments, right? And then I like to read the comments back and forth. Like, this is how you get like to the meat and the core of this stuff. This is how you get the bigger understanding, is reading, observing, listening. And I noticed there's like a lot of people that are attacking like people in the spiritual community, because they're like, how dare you go on like living your life and like selling these programs, and shame on the people that are like in their pleasure and like blah blah blah, and like people are shaming each other, right? And so it's really interesting, because when this all first started happening to me, I am of the belief system that the findings of David Hawkins are very spot on and accurate as far as how they resonate with me. And with Hawkins, he has this excellent book called Power versus Force, which is based on muscle testing and kinesiology, which is really fascinating. It's basically the body bypasses the mind to give you an answer. And he talks about how politics are very low calibrated, right? And he talks about how love is at a calibration of 500. And he does this on a scale of like 0 to 1,000, right? Getting engaged in politics is like very low vibrational. It's not that far away from anger, which, yeah, great things have happened with anger, but horrible things have also. And just keep following my train of thought, it'll all make sense. And so with Hawkins, love is calibrated at like 500, and I don't remember off the top of my head what politics is, but I think it's like below 300. So obviously there's a gap with those two, right? And he says that it's of most benefit to focus on being the love that you want to see in the world, to create that ripple effect of love in the world. So you got to begin within and work on changing your inner dynamics and your relationship with self, so that way you can little by little calibrate closer to love, which he also says in the book, like most people aren't going to shift their calibration by that much. It's going to be maybe by like 5 to 10 points maybe. So I mean, don't get all martyr and savior like and be like, oh, I'm going to shift from like being calibrated at 200 to 500. It's probably not going to happen in this life. However, it's a very noble goal to want to shift higher into love, and ways to do that would be not getting caught up in all this political strife that is going on in comments and stuff as people bash each other. Because I've seen a lot of comments bashing like white women. And yes, I am a white woman, but I'm also doing like the racial deconstruction work that I resonate with at this time. And I'm doing my part. And I do acknowledge that there are white women that are just oblivious to like how they play a part of the problem. But I don't get involved in it. I just focus on what I can focus on, which is my own little bubble, right? And so with that said, when the Palestine-Israel conflict started, I decided to adhere to my belief system and go within and be the love that I want to see. And I decided that I needed to look at where I was at war with myself, because I have the belief system that everything outside of us is a reflection of what's inside of us. And I also have the belief system that we're all connected. Very much like Avatar in that one. So I was like, okay, where am I like fighting with myself? Where is inner conflict going on? And I was like, oh man, I got a lot of shit to deconstruct and rewire and understand and purge and process and feel out and all that, right? I'm still doing it. And so that's my form of activism, is going within and communicating with myself and establishing communication with the different archetypes within myself to create a ceasefire that is sustainable within myself, and turning my battlegrounds into like fields of poppies, right? And I say poppies because I mean, after World War II, like that's why poppies became like a recognized flower, was because they grew out of like the battlegrounds where war was. And so that is my form of activism. And as I read and listen to all these comments and watch all these comments, there are some of the people in the spiritual community, like Mia Magic was saying, like, you got to work within here. See, that was a confirmation. You got to work within here to put out the fires inside, and then that can contribute and put an input into the collective to put out the fires that are going on the outside, right? And it's just so important for more people to get on this page. And this is very like inner, deep, subtle form of activism. And it's not everybody's form of activism. And it's like we have so many holograms. And when I say hologram, I mean like realities. Like you have your hologram that you've created for yourself. We have so many holograms, some that interact with others and others that don't interact at all. And so many belief systems that there's a lot of inner conflict going on in the collective, regardless of what a person's belief systems or holograms consist of, right? And then we also have all these religions, which are all like ideologies. And if you subscribe to any type of ideology, then you're screwing somebody in the end, right? But then if you turn that inside, what ideologies are you subscribing to inside of yourself? What is your talk about inner child? Are you like bashing your inner child? Do you have an inner naysayer? Do you have an inner perfectionist? Do you have an inner critic? Do you have someone that tells you you're worthless all the time and beats you up and kicks you when you're down all the time inside of you? Do you have someone that desperately wants love but constantly is sabotaging it inside of you? Do you have someone that always has to get the last word in that's inside of you to the point of hurting other people? Like, what can you deconstruct within yourself and dissolve within yourself? Because the more you do this, the more you create space to bring in and anchor in peace and maintain peace in your energy field, which can hold space for others in the collective that might not get called to this form of activism. Maybe they're called to the form of activism of doing like picketing and posting things on social media or prayer. And that's fine as well. But it's like understanding and recognizing that each form of activism is valid and each form of activism should be respected. And if any of you are feeling misunderstood because people don't understand like this deep shadow work type of activism, you're not alone. Okay, like you're not. There's other people out there that are doing this work, and this work isn't easy at all. And it doesn't mean you don't care about what's going on the outside. In fact, you care so much that you're going inside to try to shift some of the foundations in the collective to assist in shifting the energetics of what's going on and the external conflict that we are seeing overseas. I'm here in America. And your work is valid, your work is powerful. And just because one person is looking down on you because you're not doing it their way, that's their own inner battle right there. That's not a battle worth fighting for you. Like, you need to do your own work. If they trigger you because they're shaming you, where have you shamed yourself? Where did you learn to shame yourself? Go inside and look at that and dissolve it and deconstruct it. As for them, let them do whatever their soul has signed up to do, but don't internalize it. And tying this back to the comments, like I've seen so many people like bashing people and going on and on about the spiritual community and like the love and light community. I see a lot of people bashing on love and light. And like I get it, it's there for a reason. All of these stereotypes and things come up for a reason. There's like truth to them, right? But what the world needs right now is love, you know? And one of the greatest forms of love is to love yourself enough that you can love another person, because you can only love a person as deeply as you love yourself. You can only bring in peace and contribute peace to the collective as deeply as you bring in peace and contribute peace to yourself, right? And with the love and light community, like people attacking the love and light community, it's really interesting because they're attacking like love and light and they're saying how light rhymes with white. But I'm also like, okay, like in physics and science, like we are made of like light, like it doesn't necessarily have to do with skin color. However, I do understand where it's necessary to deconstruct like racism around being white and then people of color. That's a whole nother conversation, and that's a whole nother form of activism, right? Because that's the other thing too. Like I'm seeing in these comments, like so many people are making it about their own inner battles, and then they're fighting fire with fire. Like they're like, oh, I want a ceasefire and screw the love and light community or screw this white person. And then they're talking about decolonizing, but then it's like they don't even see like their own inner battles. So they're just trying to fight fire with fire, which is not really helpful because then you're creating other battles in the field instead of holding space for what's going on in Israel and Palestine. Um, so yeah, that's what I got on activism and doing the work within to deconstruct. It's a lot to think about. Um, and I just want to like validate you and say like there is no wrong way to go about doing your inner work on putting out your own inner fires and creating ceasefires within, as long as you're acknowledging and actualizing where you're at odds with yourself, which, okay, maybe you might not even be able to see where you're at odds with yourself. Maybe a good way to start is to look at where you're critical of other people. Maybe it's a good idea to see like where you're judgmental, where you treat someone as if their work doesn't count, right? And then understanding where did you learn that from? Because that's kind of like that's like a fighting fire with fire thing. And it's also like shaming another person, which shaming isn't nice and judging isn't nice. And I get we're all human and we're gonna go through like periods of like being on high horses and periods of crawling through the trenches and periods of like being in a nice wave of peace. And the only constant in life is change. But like, um, where did you learn to treat people this way? Where did you learn to view people this way? That might be the easier way for you to go within, is to look at what you have going on outside of you. Maybe you're a spiritual person watching this and you're like, oh my God, people who smoke cigarettes are so low vibrational. And then you're like, but meanwhile, I'm going to pray for peace in Palestine. Okay, you're judging someone for them smoking, which is probably a coping mechanism of some type of trauma, that a coping mechanism that stems from some type of trauma that they went through. Or maybe it's a coping mechanism of like their current life situation. And you're judging them and then you're talking about praying for peace. There's a bit of hypocrisy and contradiction there, right? So look at that and dissect it and understand like, where did I learn this was okay? Where did I learn this behavior? And what can I do about it? Like what can I do to correct how I've been judging people and labeling people in ways that aren't the most like supportive of them or myself? And then start there. And then yeah, I totally suggest like reading comments and seeing where people are fighting and asking yourself, is it worth it to put this energy into it? Like if I really want to bring about peace, do I want to stir the pot? Do I want to add fire to a fire that's already going? Or do I want to just observe and see what that information brings up for me as it percolates, you know? There's great power to witnessing and observing and allowing yourself to land in a place of stillness, um, to better digest what's going on in the collective and what's going on within you. And I think if there's anything else I want to touch on. Yeah, I guess that's what I got. And for some of you, I don't know, this might resonate. Some of you, you might be pleasantly surprised, like, oh, it kind of makes sense. And for others, if you're interested in reading about power versus force, I highly recommend getting that book from David Hawkins. And then he also has another one. I have not finished it yet. It's called The Path of Surrender or Letting Go or something. It's about surrender and letting go of like these emotions that are lower density, like fear and shame and guilt and anger. Because the more of that you can let go, the more you can like kind of rise up and have that bird's eye view of what's going on, which when you have the bird's eye view, then you could be more helpful, you know, versus when you're stuck in the trenches, you can't really see what's around the corner because you're blinded by rage or like fear has your vision shot, you know. Um, so yeah, I hope this video is helpful. I hope it gives you validation. I hope it gives you maybe understanding. Maybe you're watching this because you have a friend where you just don't understand why they're not posting, why they're like kind of going within instead of like getting engaged with the outside. Maybe this will help you kind of understand them better. And hopefully this video helps you stand in solidarity with yourself, with your soul, and what it is to be authentic and true to yourself. And also, hopefully it helps you stand in solidarity with those that might not necessarily think that you're standing in solidarity, but solidarity for bringing in peace to the world. And as you do activism work, make sure that you are bringing in play and pleasure and like prayer and time for processing and self-care. Like when you don't play and when you don't find time for pleasure, like it really depletes you and it really takes away from you really getting to live the experience of like this human life. Like if you're in a place where you can play and be in your pleasure and rest and you're not in a war zone, like do the collective the service of putting love into yourself by being playful and in your pleasure for those humans that can't be in that. Like you don't have to add to the suffering by suffering more. Like, oh my gosh, like people are getting blown up and decapitated and like their families are dying and I need to like plug myself into that and just have my eyes witness these horrible things day in and day out, like, and then you're suffering because you're grieving for them. Um, that doesn't do anything for the collective to shift the energetics. Um, and that's important. Like, uh, if you're in a place where you can be in play and pleasure, please be in play and pleasure. Take time to sketch, to draw, to write, to read, to dance, to exercise, to eat healthy. Do it for the people that can't do it. That's activism right there. And it's so, so, so important. And like, yeah, at the same time, like be aware of what's going on, witness it. You don't have to necessarily engage in the way people tell you to engage by like posting and all of that over and over and over. Sure, do a post here and there, but like just witness it. That's engagement with your eyes by viewing it, you know? Um, and maybe even like, okay, maybe you're a highly sensitive person. A good way to possibly witness and not get consumed and to honor is to like be intentional with expressing your grief, which grief is not just like one emotion. Like when you're processing grief, it's a lot of emotions that come up just through the portal that grief is. You're gonna have anger, rage, anxiety, fear, frustration. You're gonna get dysregulated as you're grieving. And especially as you're grieving and witnessing this happening to people that are part of a collective that you're very much part of just through being human. So maybe just have boundaries with yourself and dress to express your grief. Be like, I'm gonna wear this outfit that's all black. I'm gonna wear black leggings and a black shirt. I'm gonna wear a black dress. I'm gonna wear a black suit, whatever it may be. And be like, and I'm gonna wear this for an entire day. And when I take it off, that's it. The window is closed for me to express grief. And then that way you're also moving stuff through your body that's yours, or maybe you want to do it for the collective. Just have boundaries with yourself and don't shame yourself because you are having boundaries. Like some people would benefit from having boundaries, and maybe you could teach people by dressing to express your grief. They might get curious and then they might want to do it, and that would be cool. That's like a little ripple effect of change. Um, so that's what I got. I hope this was helpful. Please let me know in the comments. And yeah, I see you and keep on with whatever form of activism helps you stay aligned with the beauty, wisdom, and integrity of your soul. Aho, be well.